Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I am privileged to have a very, very successful author, coach, and speaker with me from New York, Chester Elton. Chester, welcome to the show.
Ash, delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Chester, as I mentioned, is an author, executive coach, and a keynote speaker. He's the co-founder of The Culture Works, and we're going to talk about that. The book that he has written is titled The Carrot Principle and Leading with Gratitude. And as a coach, he has been named as a top HR influencer, and he's a member of Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Global Coaches. And getting into that is no mean achievement. So Chester, tell me, what would you say are 3 key milestones in your life or your career?
You know, Ash, that's such a great question. And thank you for sending them to me in advance so I could figure out what those 3 key milestones really are. Mm-hmm. You know, clearly, I think, for my business career and my personal life, a really key milestone for me was when I was 19 years old. We're a very devout Christian family in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And when you're 18, 19 years old, you can volunteer to serve a mission for the church. And it really is a wonderful experience. It's 2 years. It's at your own expense. And at the time, and this was way back in 1978, I'm dating myself, you'd get a letter in the mail, Ash, and you'd open the letter and the church would say, you get to spend the next 2 years of your life serving the church and preaching the gospel and then they would fill in the blank. And they could send you anywhere, the jungles of Africa and South America and so on. I opened my letter, Ash, and it said, you were going to spend the next 2 years of your life in southern Italy.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's when Jesus loves you, when you get to spend 2 years
Absolutely.
in southern Italy. And the reason that was such a milestone in my life, Ash, is because it's 2 years of service. You're not paid, you don't work, you don't date, you just simply, you get up every day and your job is to make someone else's day a little better.
Wow.
And it teaches you altruism, it teaches you discipline, you have a lot of different companions. Over 2 years, you always have a companion. You study the scriptures, you learn a language, you get immersed in a culture. And it's really interesting. There isn't a day goes by that I don't think of or something comes up that reminds me of my mission. I live now just across the river from New York City in New Jersey, and we have great pizza. So right out of the gate, I'm always thinking about Italy. Fantastic. With the spectacular food. More than that, though, it really did teach me to appreciate different people, different cultures, a language, and to serve. So I would say that was by far the first big milestone in my life. Okay. What do you think? Great
milestone.
The second milestone, without question, was marrying my wonderful wife, Heidi Olson Elton. We've been married for 37 years now, 4 beautiful children, 2 grandchildren, soon to be 3. And I think, my father would always say, marry above your station. And I certainly did that. She is my North Star, my rock. She's the glue that holds us all together. She has a remarkable heart and a wonderful service. I guess the next big milestone, excluding the birth of your children and all those wonderful events, I'd have to say it was meeting my co-author, Adrian Gostick. For 20 years, we've been writing about culture, leadership, gratitude. Leading with Gratitude is our 13th book. We've sold over 1.5 million copies. They're in 30 languages. We just finished our 14th book on anxiety in the workplace.
Wow.
And not only have we become wonderful business partners and co-authors, Adrian has become my brother. Wow. I have 4 remarkable older brothers plus Adrian. So I would have to say my mission, marrying my wife, and meeting my business partner and my co-author, Adrian Gostick.
So, you said you've been married 37 years. In March, I would have been married 38 years. So
I know we're on the same track.
Right. I know how important a strong partner is. And I agree with you. So Chester, let's move to your first area of expertise, and you have so many. As a coach, My first question is that why has coaching become so relevant and important in the world? I mean, it's always there in sports. It's been there in the US for a long time, but everywhere in the world is talking of coaching. Why is this happening?
I think we've realized that just putting people in a position and say, learn on the job is a horrible way to run a business and develop leaders. It's really interesting, Ash, because it's completely flipped. I remember being young in business, and if a senior executive got a coach, it meant they were in trouble. This was the last ditch effort to try to save his or her career. And back then it was almost always his, right? There were very few women leaders in business. As coaching became more accepted, and to your point, it's been in sports forever. I love the analogy, and this is what I do with people I coach. In fact, I've got an executive we're talking about maybe becoming his coach today. So timing is perfect. And I said to him, you are an up and coming leader. You've got a lot of restaurants and a growing business. Do you want to be world class? And of course, the answer is always yes. I say, great. Are you a sports fan? And they'll say, oh, yeah. I'll say, well, who's some of your favorite athletes? They'll say, Roger Federer, LeBron James, Serena Williams, whoever it might be. And I said, great. They clearly are top of their game. Do they have a coach? Of course they do. In fact, multiple, a nutrition coach, a strength coach, a hitting coach, or even a psychological coach, right? I said, great. Do you think they would have been world class without those coaches? Well, no way. I said, well, do you have a coach? And they go, And so it becomes very obvious if you want to be world class. And I love that there is such a variety of coaches. There's coaches for where I love to coach, Ash, is the leaders of tomorrow, the high potential leaders. Because I just remember being a new manager, a new leader, marked for, promotion and so on. I had no clue what I was doing. And so I'm reading books and I'm looking around and I'm trying to figure out, okay, she looks like she's a good leader and he looks like what do they do? And it's a very inefficient way to become world class. So a long answer to your short question, I think it's become really popular because we realize the value of having a mentor, having a coach, having someone with experience to walk you through the landmine, which is leadership.
Fantastic. So, I've often been asked this question, and I'm going to ask you the same question, that how long should an association be with the coach?
I think that really depends on the development of the coachee. I hate it when people say, we need you to coach this executive for 3 months. That's just not long enough to develop a good habit. So look, it has to be at least 6 months, probably a year. When you think about changing people's behavior, that takes time. You're going to be happily married for 37 years in March. It took you time to develop a wonderful partnership.
Correct.
And so I don't think it's ever a good idea to put a hard stop. I think you recommend at least 6 to 12 months with milestones along the way. And what I love about being part of Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Coaches Pay It Forward is it's stakeholder coaching. In other words, it's not just you and your coach. You have stakeholders around you that you can check in with. How am I doing? Because Ash, as you well know, it's a lot harder to change perception than it is behavior.
Correct.
You can change behavior. The analogy I love to use is say, well, if somebody's got really rough language, they swear a lot. You can say, okay, well, I can get you to stop swearing fairly quickly. The perception of everyone around you that you've stopped swearing is going to take months, if not years, unless you check in with them and you get them to be a part of the process. So again, a long answer to a short question. It depends on development. Never set short deadlines. It will always take a little longer than you think.
Very interesting. So the example you just gave, I've often used another example when I coach someone, which is, for a sports person, how long does it take to develop muscle memory, and it's a process. So my next question to you on coaching, and I want to move to culture now, is from a coachee perspective, how do they determine that I have a coach who is working?
And it's a great question, right? I think, with the stakeholder coaching, that's an easy answer because you've got people involved and you ask them on a regular basis, how is she doing? How is he doing? And you actually have the data. Another obvious for me is if they're high potential leaders, are they getting promoted? Are they given new assignments? Are they given more responsibilities? That won't happen unless you're growing and developing. The former, though, is by far the best. Ask your stakeholders around you, have they improved? Have they made a difference? And then there's no doubt.
Fantastic. So let me move to the second part of our conversation, which is on culture. And you are the co-founder of the Culture Works. Tell me about the Culture Works, and then we'll ask a few questions on that.
Well, it's an international training company. You know, Adrian and I realized very quickly as we started to publish our books, and I wish we had coaches back then that help us through it. But, you know, we would write a book and people would say, loved your book. Of course, you speak on your book. And we thought, sure, why not? You know, we had never thought that far. I said, great. So we started to speak and said, people, well, we loved your speech. You have training, of course. And we thought, well, that's obviously that, and we, you know, for many of you authors listening, you say, of course, that's your plan. That wasn't our plan. We were guided by our clients, and so as we started to develop the training, and of course, training has taken on a whole different look with COVID and doing more and more virtual. But that's where you take your research that you publish and the speeches that you give, and you actualize what you're doing, and you teach people how to do it. And not only do you have the data and the case studies and the models, now you have the tools to replicate that success. And I'll tell you, we've become very, very data driven now, Ash. You know, we developed within the Culture Works a wonderful motivators assessment that helps leaders understand not just what they're good at, what are they passionate about? How do you marry that passion with expertise to really create, you know, meaningful work that's highly productive and successful, and then translate that to your team. So I love the evolution of training. It's gone obviously away from classroom settings. It's just not safe, hasn't been for almost a year. How do you do it virtually? How do you bring people together safely? And then how do you take that data? How do you take the information that you're getting and see the trends and use that not only in the training, but in the coaching as well?
Wonderful. And, you know, when I was reading about the notes about you and about the Culture Works, I, you know, saw this phrase called high performance culture.
Right.
Let me understand, what is high performance culture? Is it simply how many more dollars and cents are going to the bottom line?
You know, you would think that, wouldn't you? It's clearly more than that. We've been studying, as I mentioned, for 20 years, great cultures, great leaders. And clearly you can't have a great culture without a great leader. You know, it starts at the top. We now have a database, Ash, of over 1 million engagement surveys, as well as 90,000 people that have taken our motivators assessment all over the world. And we came to a definition that I really like, that a healthy, high-performance, highly engaged culture is a culture where people believe what they do matter, and they make a difference. And I always add to that, and when they make a difference, it's noticed and celebrated, that those simple expressions of gratitude. You know, we never found a great leader or culture that didn't celebrate their successes, and not just top down, but peer to peer. There was a culture of gratitude. So if I believe that what I do matters, right? I know the why of work, and I can connect the dots to what I do every day makes a difference. And then I layer on top of that it's noticed and celebrated, that affirmation. I'm not just mentally engaged. I'm emotionally and in many cases spiritually engaged. That to me is a culture that will always perform above and beyond their peers. In fact, we have the data to show that's exactly the case.
Terrific. And, you know, when you talk of values and culture, how important are these two words in successful organizations? Are they mere lip service, or is something much more underlying such strong values and culture?
Excellent question. I mean, you can't have one without the other. You can't have a great culture without really good core values. And, you know, some of them are given. You know, one of the cultures that I enjoy very much, and the CEO and I have become great friends, is WD-40. You know, everybody's got a can, that blue and yellow can with the red top, right? And WD-40 has an amazing, what they call tribal culture. And it's based on very strong core values. And, you know, to boil it down is do the right thing. And if you can't say, hey, I'm doing the right thing, then nothing else you do after that matters, right? And they talk about it and they drill down. They're a tribe, Gary Ridge, who's the CEO, delightful Aussie that lives now in San Diego. Mm-hmm. He says, a tribe is more than being a teammate or an associate or a coworker. Mm-hmm. In a tribe, you defend each other, you feed each other, you celebrate together. There's more of an emotional connection. And when we're focused on doing the right thing and creating opportunities and creating memories and helping the world work a little more smoothly, which is a wonderful, value for a lubricant company, right? Mm-hmm. Then you've got something magical. And I will tell you that, since Gary's been the CEO, they've grown from a $250 million company to a $2.5 billion international company. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, Ash, they have a 99% employee engagement score, which, by the way, is unheard of anywhere in an organization of any size. Mm. So, when you say values and culture, absolutely, they are inextricably connected. Mm-hmm. You can't have a great culture without solid values.
And therefore, a follow-up question to you would be, and this is for the thousands of young people who will be listening to you speak and, viewing you. How does a startup, a young company, build culture?
I thought of all the questions you sent me in advance. This was really one of the most interesting, because when you're starting out, you don't have a culture. I mean, you have an idea of what you want your culture to be. Mm. And I would recommend for startups, really be very, very clear on why you are doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Look, if it's just build it and sell it, be very transparent about that. Say, look, this is just a financial transaction. I'm not going to care about your family or you. I just want you to, pump out new customers, build a value, and we're going to sell this thing and make some money. Okay. That is the attitude of a lot of startups, for good, bad, or ill. I mean, is it good news? Is it bad news? Who knows, right? The old Buddhist story. So what I would say is, if from the beginning you want to build something that's going to last, if you want to build a 100-year company, be very clear about what your core values are. And be very clear with people that you bring into the organization that this isn't a build and sell. This is something, we're gonna supply pure water to every tribe in Africa. Every child in Africa is gonna have fresh water in the next 20 years. So that's your core value, and that we are going to be transparent, open, and honest with each other. We're gonna make a difference. We are not going to sacrifice short-term gain for long-term impact. Mm-hmm. You really got to sit down early on and say, this is what we want. Now, that will change without question as people come in, as products develop, as services develop. At the very beginning, though, you've got to say, okay, here's where we are today. Here's where we want to get to. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get there? And what is non-negotiable? Okay. Transparency and integrity is non-negotiable. Right? Make sure everybody knows that up front. WD-40, we're going to do the right thing. Okay. That's non-negotiable. Okay. We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to cheat. We're not going to lie.
Well
right?
said. Well said. I mean, I think it's very important to define non-negotiable terms, and I think that's a significant and an important component of culture. Well said. So, Chester, you've done so many things, coach, speaker, author. What are some of the values you believe in?
Yes. This is where it gets really personal, and thank you for the question. For me, it's faith, family, and friends. Mm-hmm. For me, my faith has been something I've grown up with. It's something that I've struggled with and nurtured along with my wonderful wife and our children. Okay. And so my core values is faith, that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves, that we will be held accountable for the way we live our lives and the way we treat each other. Mm-hmm. I start every morning with a simple mantra: be kind, be grateful, and be of service.
Well said.
And so first and foremost, my core values come from my faith. Second is my family. And I will tell you that I haven't always been the best husband and father. I've gotten caught up, as many of us do, with the race to the top, the race to get the promotion, to make a little more money, and so on. And again, have struggled with that. And have really reinvested in that lately, particularly as we've welcomed grandchildren. And then friends. I took our motivators assessment and continue to take it because your motivators do change. Friendship is always very high for me. I value having people that I love, that I value, that I respect around me. The Marshall Goldsmith coaches community has been an incredible gift and a blessing to me in my life. Some lifelong friendships have developed out of that. If you'd asked me 3 milestones in my life that have made a difference, Marshall Goldsmith, his friendship, mentoring, coaching, and that community would have made the list. And so for me, it's faith, family, and friends.
Fantastic. So now time for 2 or 3 questions for you personally. Chester, so much success, such a happy family, growing, doing well. What does success mean to Chester?
Yes, you ask such penetrating questions, Ash. This is a good one. Success for me as I've gotten older. This is going to sound a little silly. It's a good night's sleep.
Correct.
It's being able to put my head on the pillow and say, I did my best today to lift somebody else up. I did my best to make my family feel loved. I did my best to build a little better company, and I did my best to be true to my values. I know that sounds, maybe I should have said more money and more books. I honestly, as I get older, it's a good night's sleep.
Fantastic. And a follow-up question, which is related, is that you keep wanting to do so many more new things. What inspires you?
I am inspired by so many good people around me. Marshall Goldsmith has been a tremendous inspiration. My wife is a tremendous inspiration. She does a lot of things in public affairs, in bringing people of various faiths together for good works. And this from your business and the associations you've been, people will approach you with ideas and say, Ash, I would like you to get involved. I'd like you to be on the board. I'd like you to introduce me to some of your friends. And I think that's where your inspiration comes from. I will also say that some years ago, we decided we wanted a little getaway, a place where the family could gather. And we found a wonderful little, you'd call it a cabin in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. Now, I grew up in Canada, so upstate New York is very Canadian. The winters are harsh. It connects me with my Canadian DNA, right? And I will tell you that when I go for a walk in the woods and I sit out on the dock, and we are blessed to have a little lake very close, nature is very inspiring. And when you sit there and you listen to the birds and hear the wind and just see the life that emerges around you, it inspires you to do the right thing and to help preserve this kind of beauty for the next generation, to make it available to people. One of the great blessings of this little place is we've had 30 different families come and visit over the last couple of years as our guests, and to share that. So inspiration, I think, comes from a lot of places. Inspiring people around you, like you, Ash, and I think nature is a great inspiration.
Fantastic. And so, Chester, my last question to you, and I'm going to ask you this question. It's a question on failure. And I have a new book coming out on failure in March. I know the problem for most parents in South Asia is that we don't teach our children it's okay to fail. And yet we keep failing. My question to you is that what is your biggest learning from some of your biggest mistakes or failures?
Well, I think what you just said there, Ash, is key. Is we don't look at it as a failure. Ask yourself, what am I learning?
Okay.
It was really interesting. Some studies have been done with children, and when children were given a task and they couldn't do it, if they classified it as a failure, it was devastating. If they thought about it as a learning experience, they were eager to try again.
Okay.
And my biggest failure in life was not learning that earlier. I trusted a guy. I invested heavily, and he was not a good guy. And he was not a trustworthy guy. And Ash, I beat myself up for years on that instead of stepping back and saying, you're going to survive. It's going to be okay.
Correct.
What did you learn? Do your homework. Ask around. Don't get caught up in the flash and the personality. Do your homework. And so I think as parents in particular, we've got to teach our kids, what are you learning? And by the way, if you are ever going to become anything, a good parent, a good husband, a good business partner, a good friend, you are going to fail. And you're going to fail hundreds, if not thousands of times.
Absolutely.
So don't worry about that. Take that off the table. You're going to fail. Let's just accept that.
Correct.
The question is, what are you going to learn? Now, one last thing I want to share with your listeners. WD-40, one of my favorite companies. WD-40 actually stands for Water Displacement 40th Formula.
Okay.
Think about that. They took 39 tries that were wrong before they got it to the 40th formula. It took 30. Were there 39 failures? There were 39 learning moments. And the way Gary Ridge has been able to develop such a wonderful culture is they don't believe in failure. They say, we don't make mistakes. We have learning moments.
Fantastic.
Boy, if we could get, entrepreneurs and business people and our kids and our children in their marriages, we don't have failures. We have learning moments. I think we'd all be happier and we'd all make a lot more progress.
What a wonderful way to end our conversation. Chester, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and honor speaking to you. I wish you lots and lots of success in whatever you're doing.
Thank you very much. And to your listeners, I hope that today you'll be kind, you'll be grateful, and you'll be of service. Thank you, Ash.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.